April Hedrick. We're here today at the home of Christine Goode to interview her about J.C. Price School. Ms. Goode is a former student. Okay, can you tell us your name, how old you are, and where you were born?
Okay, my name is Christine Beatrice Adams Bizelle Goode. And I was born right here in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I was born in the Warnersville community on McCulloch Street. And you want to know my midwife's name? The midwife was Mrs. Barnes.
They had midwives then?
Yes, we had midwives back then.
Okay,
and I was born on November 27th, 1931. So this November, well, this month I'll be 76.
Okay. What years did you attend J.C. Price School?
From 4th grade through the 8th grade. What was that year? 19... Oh, God. Help me count somebody. I started school in 1st grade. I was 6 years old at Jacksonville School. And that was 1st through 3rd grade. I went to J.C. Price, the 4th grade.
In 39, 40?
Yeah.
40 through 44? 40 through 44, somewhere along there.
Yeah, because I
You
went to
Dudley in
45.
45.
So I know I was there through 44.
Okay, what were some of your memories of Price School? Good memories or bad memories even?
Well, worst memory was Miss Melton taking my hand and bending it and paddling it. But I did deserve it because I was going to get into a fight. So I can't. That's not so bad. My good memories were being taught just everyday common sense things to do, how to treat people, and I loved acting, and they would let me do a lot of that. I was in the chorus for music. I was in that, and I think my best memories were being chosen to represent the school at different functions in the city. And one thing, I was a girl reserve. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, because it was later called Y Teens, and it was connected to the YWCA. And I was chosen to go over to the United Methodist Church on Market Street, which is all white. And I was to participate in their program there. And I got the worst whipping at home for doing what I did. Because my grandmother thought that you don't take a bath when you have your period. And I did not want to be smelling. So, that morning before getting ready to go to Market Street Methodist Church, I ran a tub of water and I took a good hot bath. And my grandmother said, "What are you doing in there?" And I said, "Nothing." And when she opened that door and saw me, she said, "I'm going to get you, because I told you about doing that." And I got a whipping. And then I had to walk from Cedar Street to Market Street, and I was in tears. But just before I got there, I was just nice. I was looking good. So that had nothing to do with the school, of course. But we had such discipline in the home, and I was always taught you have to behave, and when you go to school, mind the teacher. So that was always in front of me. I knew that if I did anything that was contrary to what my grandmother said do, I was going to get it. So I was on my best behavior. And at school, that was the only whipping I got from Mrs. Melton, believe it or not. That was the only one. Because I was always well behaved. And Miss Butler kept reminding me, too, that what did she say? The empty wagon always makes the most noise. So one day I was talking, and she said, "Are you the empty wagon?" And I'm like, "No. I'm smart, I do things the right way and all," and which I did because I was an honor student. And after she said that to me, I was always aware of talking. I still do it, but I did talk a lot. I really did. Some more good memories were they allowed at J.C. Price School in the summertime, they allowed that to be the playground for all the children in the area to come. And we played softball and other games, but that was one of the recreation centers. So the milk truck would come, and I always had my little nickels so I could get a carton of milk, and that was the best milk in the world. Let's see. I know I'm rambling, but I'm trying to think about the good feeling, that comes up when you think about something as good as your elementary school days. I didn't get into fights other than that one, and that was really something I should have been fighting about. So I won't even tell y'all what it was about, but I was gonna crucify that girl. Being allowed to go to the library, I love to read, and Miss Dyson was the librarian, and she would let me read a lot, and then over the intercom, some days I was allowed to make the announcements. She was in charge of that too, and she would allow me to also help in the library, putting the books up and things like that, and I always enjoyed that. And one lesson that stuck with me for a long time was when the home ec teacher, who was, oh gosh, I can't think of her name, Mrs. Bolden, had me in home economics, and I had to make this apron, and she made me take out all the stitches over and over and over again. That was the dirtiest apron, I believe, in the whole class, because I didn't like to sew. That was the first thing. I didn't want to do it. And having me to do it over and over and over again, it taught me a big lesson. And the teachers, like Miss Catherine Taylor, Mrs. Bolden, and Miss Butler, and I'm thinking of another teacher who helped me so much, Susie Taylor. they decided they were gonna, I was like their, what do you call it? I don't know what it wouldn't be a prodigy or anything, but they sort of took me under their wings. And I remember Miss Catherine Taylor saying, I'm going to teach you how to wait on somebody. She said, so go get me a glass of water. And I said, all right. And I got this glass of water, and I put it on a plate, and I took it to her. And she says, now, I want you to remember, you don't just bring a person a glass of water like that. I think I just handed it to her. So she said, no. And she said, from the distance from the sink over to here, you should have put a napkin over the glass so that nothing gets into the water. And I said, oh, okay. So she was trying to teach me how to serve, or be a better servant than I was. And that lesson stuck with me for the longest. And ever since then, when I would serve somebody at home, I would say, oh, let me do this just right. So that one lesson, and it helped me when I went to work in a restaurant too. And I notice nowadays they don't do anything like that. They just come and plop it down. And they don't even set the table right. But I was taught how to set a table. They gave just common sense lessons. How to do things in the home. Preparing simple meals. Just like salmon cakes and mashed potatoes and stuff like that. And I got a lot out of that, which carried over into my married life. And them talking to me over and over and over, reminding me I'm not an empty-headed wagon, just making a lot of noise. But I had to get my lessons. And I made sure that I did my homework, because I did not want to be called out. So, and I wanted to always be on the honor roll. So I made sure that I was on the honor roll. The people like a principal like Mr. Peeler would remember who you are, and he respected the children, the students, and we respected him. We knew he also, being principal, he was also the referee at the games, and he was a photographer. And he shot a lot of pictures of May Day and just pictures in general. And I really admired Mr. Peeler. I honestly did, from the time I met him until he passed. I always admired him, and every chance I got to, even at my church, to invite him to come and speak, I would do that. So he was such a role model for, even for women, but for men certainly, he was a role model. My brother remembers him very well. What else y'all want to know? I can't think of it.
How do you judge the quality of the education you received when you were there?
Oh, it was excellent, because, well, for me it was excellent, because one thing, I love to read anyway, and by them assigning the lessons in history and in English, and then I later majored in English, it was, I think I wanted more, And it was not a hardship because I would study and be prepared, for my lessons. The only thing I could not do was art. That was terrible. And I didn't like the sewing either. Art and sewing, no. But I enjoyed school. I just enjoyed school. And the days when my grandma would say, you got to stay home and help me do the wash, because she took in washing and ironing. And I was the only help she had. And I would be in tears because I would say, I'm going to miss school. And some days I could go at 12 o'clock because I would have helped my grandmama to get her work done. And then I could go on to school, which was just so great for me. And the teachers, I think that's why some of them got so involved with my life, because they knew my mother died when I was 12 and a half. And they sort of looked after me and encouraged me. Not only was I encouraged to do that work there at Price, I had to do outside reading to prepare me for college. Because my, believe it or not, Miss Butler said, you are going to college. And I'm like, we don't have money. My granddaddy didn't have any. He was a janitor, and they didn't make anything. And my grandmama took in washing and ironing. That wasn't, not a lot of money. So it was up to me to work as hard as I could to keep my grades going. And also I had to work outside of the home. So I started working very early in my life. I was working very early. And the lessons, like the teachers, I talk about taking the water to the teacher, and learning how to keep a house and stuff like that. They would just do that on the side. That was not part of the regular school lesson. But I needed to know that because I had to work. I really had to work. And it helped me when I went to homes, and tried to take care of, like, people had children, and then they expected me to cook, and, and I'm just 12, 13, 14 years old, and doing it all, just doing it all. So I appreciated Miss Butler, Miss Taylor, both the Taylors, and appreciated, oh gosh, well, even the art teacher, even though I couldn't catch on to, I didn't learn the colors right, I didn't learn, it was just hard, because when you don't want to do something, you don't like it, you won't do it. But now I appreciate art. I really love art. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't draw. I can do a good stick man. I can do you a stick man. This is for I can't make the face and the hair and all of that. I can't do that. But we had some good students in art. I just wasn't one of them. And but the quality that, and see, with Mr. Peeler being the head, the teachers knew that they had to really perform and do their work so that we would get it. And I got it. I really got it. And it helped me when I got to high school. And Miss Butler still followed me from J.C. Price. She followed me to Dudley High School. She only stayed there that 1 year, but her eye was always on me. And then she and the other teachers decided they would help me to get into college. So I owe them a lot. I really do.
Who was your favorite teacher? Did you have a favorite?
I guess Miss Butler was my favorite. Because she was kind of tough on me, but she was still my favorite. Yeah.
Do you remember any extracurricular activities? Or were you a part of any sports, any of the clubs, band, or anything?
No sports, but music. And I guess I don't remember us having drama at J.C. Price, but learning to speak, I had to do a lot of that. And there again, Miss Melton, who I identified in one of those pictures, Miss Melton found that I liked to speak. So with her Elks Lodge, she kind of pulled me aside and had me prepare for speaking. And I would go to what do you call those women? They aren't called Elks. They're called something, Daughters of something. Daughters of whatever the Elks Club has. And I would be in their little parade. And I would go to, and they always had their oratorical contest at a church. So I got a chance to learn some more about churches. I use all of that. I had my pastor to help me with my speeches, and Miss Melton would make sure that I was prepared and ready to stand before a large, they call it a large audience. Back then it was 200 people, but to them that was a large audience. But I would do just, what she expected me to do. And I won a couple of contests, so, I enjoyed that. So that, in addition to just the classroom work, I could do the other stuff too. And I enjoyed it. So that was by extracurricular, the speaking and the choral society, or the chorus, the J.C. Price choral group. That was, I was in that. So, and I don't even know if it was called J.C. Price choral group, but I did sing a little bit. My grandmother said I couldn't sing, but by her standards, I couldn't sing. But with the chorus, you can sing. Yeah. And they said I had a pretty good voice, so I sang.
Let's see. How do you think your education at Price compared to the white schools in Greensboro? Do you think it was the same?
I don't know what they were doing over there.
You don't?
I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was getting was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I know at Price we did not have discipline problems. I hear about them but in my era, you got to remember this is back in the 40s. We didn't have problems like I hear about today. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I don't know what they were doing in the white community, because I knew there was McKeever School, which was right out my front door. I could look at McKeever, but I had to walk down the street to Price. And I don't know what they were doing in that school. I probably thought they were doing the same things we were doing. But, and I've only spoken with one person from McKeever School in my whole life. what's X's name? I forgot X's name, but we met at Lawndale Baptist Church for Bible study fellowship. And Exie said, "Are you from Greensboro?" And I said, "Yes, I am. I lived on Cedar Street growing up." She said, "I lived on Union Street," which was the street that came into Cedar Street. The white community was just right here, and we were right here. It was just no distance. But we didn't mix. We did not mix. And I didn't know Exie back when she was a little girl. We were the same age, but we didn't know each other. And we just found each other Bible study fellowship. Now we're both 70-some years old. And she said, "I live right there on Union Street." And I didn't know that. She didn't know me. I didn't know her, because we weren't allowed, to know each other anyway. So, that's the way it was. I don't know.
Do you remember any discrimination or anything at Price? Any racial discrimination?
Not at Price, because we were all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, look, say this, don't put this in anything. I thought everybody was eating pinto beans and collard greens. I found out later that's not what everybody ate. But oh, my grandma, we had a garden and we raised pigs. So the only discrimination, it was so funny. My grandfather was told he had to move his pigs from our backyard because we were in the city. So he bargained with the man who lived in the county, which was too far. And he got a little piece of land so he could put his pigs on. And I had to go slop those hogs. And he made me a wagon and put me some little buckets on there. And every day I would go down Cedar Street to Freeman Road, make my little left turn there, and find the pigs. And on the way, the children would be laughing at me. They'd say, "Look at there, she goes, that slop bucket." And of course, that's what I had. But that was our food. And I had to do my part in the family as well as everybody else. So slopping the hogs, it was fun to go there and watch the pigs eat. But that's the way it was. And I don't remember discrimination. I was like, I had a preacher who said, "You were the teacher's pet." That's what you were. I'm like, I didn't know that. But they took a lot of interest in me. And I guess it was because I was so eager, I want to know what that is. I want to know what's in that book, And that's the only thing I can remember, because I don't remember any, even when I went over to the white church to be on their program on that one Sunday out of the year. I don't remember them saying anything ugly, or treating me differently from the other girls. I really don't. And I was the only black one over there. So I don't know.
Okay, was there a lot of interaction between the teachers or Mr. Pillar and the Warnersville community? Did they come to your houses?
Yes.
They lived in the same neighborhood pretty much?
Yes. The teachers came to the house. Oh, he was saying, "Mr. Pillar might come to your house." But my teachers came not because I was acting out or, anything. It was more like encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Now I look at it, I don't know how they had the time to do that. But we did all of our lessons, and they still had time to visit and make sure that we were on the right track. Well, at least they did for me. I don't know what they were doing with the other kids, because, you know, I really didn't get into what they were doing. I think I was more like into myself. I wanted to do my thing. They, the interaction, like I said, the summertime, the programs, letting us use the campus for activities there, and the teachers lived basically right there, you know. Mrs. Harris was on Ash Street. Who else? They were just there, and we knew we could at any time, you know, visit with them. They could come to our homes. We didn't have a whole lot of telephones, so you know that kept you from calling, having to say anything over the phone. But just visiting, that was just the thing you did. And I think we expected that.
Mm-hmm.
We actually expected the teachers to interact with the parents, the PTA. Now, for me, I had to go to the PTA meetings because my grandmother said that she couldn't go. And once I left Price, I went there because I had a brother. I had two brothers there. So I represented, you know, the family for them. And I just, the interaction with between Mr. Peel and the teachers looked good. It looked like they had good rapport. They had, like I said, with him being the leader, and the teachers knew where they stood, and we definitely knew where we stood. It was to me, I enjoyed J.C. Price School. I really enjoyed it. And the only bad thing, like I said, was Miss Melton bending my hand and beating me. She gave me 5 licks, y'all. To me, that was terrible. There wasn't no whipping.
What kind of disciplinary standards did Mr. Peeler have? What did he do? Did he give paddlings or?
They did the paddling. Yes. And they would take those boys, well, not in front of anybody. Now, I don't remember anybody except me. I still get back to Miss Melton. I don't remember them in front of the class or anything like that. You remember back then we had cloakrooms. You don't remember because you're too young. But we had cloakrooms. And if somebody really acted out, the teacher would take them to the cloakroom. Or you went down to Miss Peel's office. It wasn't like in front of everybody. They didn't do that. Because that's humiliating, you know. And I think they knew that even then. I say even in the 30s, you knew, you just didn't do that and let everybody see it. If you're going to correct me, take me aside and do it. And then I would respond better to you for doing it. Yeah.
Do you remember his morning announcements or anything that was important to him, to Mr. Peeler? What was he concerned about with the school? Things like that.
No, I can't remember that. Let's say it.
Yeah. What do you think his goal was for the school?
Looking back, I think his goal, well, I don't know what his goal was, but it looked like he was the encourager, I could say a catalyst for moving the race forward, which meant every child was considered important. Every child was to learn, because to him, I believe he thought every child could get it. And we talk about no child left behind, but he didn't want to leave anybody behind. That was, he started that. He wanted to make sure we were taken care of, we were safe, we learned so that we could move ourselves forward and not, and he wanted us to be independent. I can see that, and I can see that with the teachers interacting with us too. They wanted us to learn to be independent and responsible citizens. And that was talked about now. Lord have mercy. We talked health and good citizenship. Good citizenship. So I remember those two, because I remember we had to always, when we got there in the morning, you were going to have like a little devotion, which meant we had to look to God. And then we had the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we had to make sure everybody's hands were nice and clean. So they came around and they inspected. Yeah, they wouldn't dare do that today. But when you went in your classroom, you made sure you were nice and clean. So that was preached, really. Cleanliness, godliness, and being true to your country. So, my country too.
How do you think the Price School should be commemorated by Greensboro College or the city? What do you think should happen to the property, since Greensboro College owns it now?
Yeah, I know. I have some friends who live over that way, and they're a little bit sad. But sooner or later, you have to let go. Price will never be the school that it was. I mean, I don't see it. I can't hold on to something. I got my memories,
It was a different time.
Yeah. And we're in, we talk about technology now, and we talk about progression and the United States being part of a global field now, where we're moving forward, we're moving. And I don't think we have enough time to sit back and just keep going over and over, like beating a dead horse, trying to make him, now that might be against what everybody else is saying, but to me, let it go. Just let it go. This is a different day and time now. And like I said, I have my memories. And sometimes, I think about it, I'm a little sad that it's not there, but it's like, I guess I couldn't even send my children there, because here we were moving about in the city. So they don't even know what J.C. Price School was about. Only my brothers and I know And we're old, you know. Everything dies after a while. I mean, you can't keep holding on. You can't. And I do feel for those who live over there, who's still there. I really, I know I can imagine how they feel. But I think the thing is, too, they're thinking about the noise and whatever Greensboro College is going to be doing over there. It's like sports. Yeah. And that might be a little bit in the way. You want to keep your community as your community, the Warnersville community. And I don't believe Greensboro College even knows about the Warnersville community and what it was like from slavery up till now. They don't know what we went through and to make it grow, how Mr. Warner came along and the Quakers and Mr. Unthank and all the work that they did. They don't know about that. They couldn't. But we can't preserve it forever. We just can't do that.
Do y'all have any more questions? Do you have anything?
Okay. Miss Goode, what was your major when you went to Bennett College?
I majored in English, and I guess I would have taught it, but I also had a heavy minor with, back then they called it commercial education. I know you haven't heard of that.
Mm-mm.
And then they called it stenographic something. And then they went to, now I think it's business. Because I had a lot of business English.
Like business administration?
Yeah, now they've, it's, like I said, we're moving forward.
So what did you do after college?
I was hired at Bennett College right away. 2 weeks after I graduated, I was told to report. And I said, oh no, I got to have a break, So I went to Washington, D.C. to spend a week there and came back and went to work. So I worked in the records office. And from the records office, I worked in alumni office. From there to bookkeeping and accounting. And from bookkeeping and accounting, I went to financial aid to students.
How long were you there?
38 1/2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
You retired?
I hate to say this on me, but I quit. I gave a letter of resignation. I was tired. I didn't say I'm retiring. I got fed up with something. And I let that overtake me, and I just said, I'm out of here. So I gave him a letter of resignation, and I left. So, the end of that career.
Okay. Y'all think of anything else we need to say?